project for the Fanning Bridge Road corridor.
Yeah.
Tristan came back to me at our last NPO meeting and did let me know that where originally we thought we may have a 20% match, we're gonna have no match for the type of project it is. So if it gets funded,
Zero
that's
match?
a big if.
Yeah.
That will be something it's gonna pass on through for the prioritization, but with the money problems and financial issues, everything's just gonna depend on where it falls on the prioritization, so.
But no match.
But
That's
no
good.
match.
No, that's good.
Any other updates? Well, I know, Jim, you called me about Advent Health. They're
Yes.
applying for a certificate of need for a cath lab at their location up the street. In my own personal capacity, I wrote a letter supporting the cath lab, since it's here, just outside of Fletcher, I reckon. But they're also going to have a public hearing. I don't know it off the top of my head, but sometime later this month.
21st, I believe it's at 10 a.m. at the public library.
In Hendersonville, right.
I'll be there, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
speak on behalf.
And I am
What kind of, excuse me, Mayor, what kind of lab?
a cath lab.
Cath lab?
Yep.
Catheter, okay.
Yep.
They're meeting some resistance from the other local hospitals, so.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, it's anybody that wants to apply for the CON will apply for the CON. I think it makes sense for Fletcher to support Advent Health because it's here in our community, right? And so I guess my question was gonna be, I've already written a letter in my personal capacity. I know Jim's gonna be there. Would you all be opposed if I said the town supported this when I went and spoke? Is everybody okay with that?
That's fine.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, any other updates from council? All righty, hearing none. Just that one item on the consent agenda, and we will move on to item number 5, the discussion of stormwater off right-of-way grant program. Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you. So last month, we went over a initial draft of this grant program, and then it went back, I'd asked to go back for some additional staff review, have our town attorney look at it, and then also our engineering firm. So we had an opportunity for staff review. I sent the comments back. And then we tried to, or did incorporate a bunch of those revisions in the copy that you have in your packet, and it's highlighted in those sections. We sent it to the town attorney, and he didn't have any comments or suggested revisions or cautions with it. So Joe Friquez was comfortable with it, and then I sent it to McGill Associates and met with Ben Caffey last week, and they had some comments. I've got a hard copy of it up here, but before we go through theirs, really the most substantive thing that changed from the initial version we looked at last month was kind of consolidating down those two categories. There was initially 3. One went up to 50,000, we consolidated it down to 2. So one, if it's a threat to a structure, potential grant up to 30,000. And again, it's a 90-10 split with 90% the town covering, 10% the property owner. And then the second category, with category 2, was a grant up to $10,000 on a 90-10 split, 90% town, 10% resident, regarding basic conveyance improvements. So that's just, and it can be conveyance improvements in the category 1, but it's something that maybe is not necessarily as much of a threat to the structure or a structure on the property. So that was kind of, those are the biggest ones, and then a lot of it was just minor revisions that were highlighted. There probably needs to be a few more minor, just form, grammar, just clarification, might be a few more. And probably the biggest one that I had on the edits in there, and then I'll get into the ones with McGill. If you go to page, in the packet, it's page 17 to 36, but it's 3 pages in under the evaluation of grant requests. Basically, the deadline to submit on here some of the programs, the ones we compared it to, had like semi-annual deadlines, or it can be just open-ended. I put quarterly in here, so we can stick with that, or if, we feel like that's gonna maybe hinder some that might come in as we release this, hopefully this month or into the next month. We could do it by the end of the month that they have to, you could just say monthly by the end of the month. So I don't know if that's something you might want to revise instead of quarterly. So I was a little torn on that one, but I put in there for sake of argument quarterly deadlines, because then the next one wouldn't hit till the end of December. So that was, but on the other hand, it's going to take some time. As we implement this, we'll have a evaluation team, like they contact the town. I'm thinking the evaluation team would be a representative of McGill and then Public Works, so probably Jabo, go out and kind of look at the situation. Yeah, you may have a project here, and then encourage them to work on the application. They give them the guidelines. Of course, they can access that beforehand. And then if they put a full-blown application together, then the committee would review that, and, if it gets recommended, then it gets funded, and they move forward with it. But, that's going to take some time, because they have to either get an engineer or work up their own plans, maybe with a contractor, and get bids and so forth. So I don't know if you want to do that at the end of the month, we review them on a monthly basis.
What about bi-month?
You
Every
could.
other.
You could.
That doesn't put it out quarterly, but
Yeah.
it doesn't put it where it seems like it's every month.
Yep.
Every 2 months.
It's probably not a bad comment.
This is for evaluation, right? Like-
Yes.
But
Yeah.
basically, the committee will come together, and that's
Yeah.
when they evaluate, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and it gives like a deadline to, hey, you can get it in, and then we'll review these at those points. So someone can turn it in at any time, it would
Yeah.
just,
Just when the
That's when
committee
it's
gets
gonna
together.
be.
yeah. Does bi-monthly or monthly or?
I'm good either or.
Pardon me?
I'm good at either
Oh.
or, every month. or
Okay, we can do it
every-
bi-monthly.
Yeah, bi-monthly, I think it'd be fine.
We can always go back and,
And this could be revised, again, we're gonna be making tweaks on this thing as we move forward, if it winds up becoming an annual, ongoing program that's funded. So maybe I'll put bi-monthly in there, okay. There really wasn't anything else on the highlighted sections, unless you wanted to discuss that further, that were real substantive. But I had a good meeting with Ben Cathy, and I've got a copy on I emailed it to you, but I've got a copy on the dais here, just so we have it handy, where, they went through it, and they had some good feedback on it. And if you want to go into that copy, like the second page, and it's in the margins there, where they commented on it. So like, under the application process, number 2, they had a comment in there about demonstrable public benefit must contain runoff from public right-of-way or public property. This is I thought, a really good observation on this, and this is something that's an important part of doing these grant programs, that it meets a public benefit. And the example, I guess, that Ben gave is, and this is where the committee can vet some of these things and maybe not recommend a project, but that you should be considering improvement projects where it's having some type of impact to public right-of-way, or it's flowing off a public right-of-way onto the person's property. And the example he gave, and I may not articulate it just quite right, but where you might have a drainage improvement on a property, and it's not really connected or having an impact on the road or public right-of-way or an adjoining property, and it's kind of self-contained and really just benefiting the property owner, but doesn't help the greater
Maybe a low
stormwater,
impact,
drainage system of the town, looking at the big picture. So I thought that was a good observation. So I could put some clarifying language, like what they suggested or something similar to that point, if you're comfortable with that. And of course, I'll send it back around for y'all to review. But I thought that was a good point. And again, is our committee, we're calling this the advisory panel, as they look at it, then they can, we can kind of vet that. And as far as who's comprised of the advisory, I was thinking, Public Works, Private Jabo, myself, and we discussed maybe one council member on there. So, if y'all decide who might want to be on that. And I know
Trevor,
Trevor
you wanna-
brought this
Yeah.
forward, so I was suggesting, but it's
Yeah, I'd
all
love
up
to
to
do
y'all,
that, yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah, I think.
So, and then the next comment was about, and some of this is getting way in maybe appropriately in the weeds, about the type that, well, North Carolina, I think it should be a North Carolina license, that first point. But some of this is getting kind of way in there with what types of insurance policy, builder's risk, general liability for property damage, personal injury, workers' comp. So I'm not sure how far we want to delve into articulating all the insurance coverage that these folks have, but there might be a blanket statement we can put in there, and I'll maybe get some feedback from McGill about that.
Would it fall under what's kind of labeled now, insured contractor?
Yeah,
Insured,
and I think if they're North Carolina licensed, they probably have to
Have all
have
that
some
right
of
there.
these things, so, and maybe they were just providing that as an example why you'd want a North Carolina license, so I'll get some clarification on that. The bottom point about design requirements and/or standards, you need to establish a minimum standard, but I understand we want to control costs and ease of plan development. So that's just kind of getting into, we're not going to dictate the design requirements, but that there's just a certain level of quality of design on it. So when I talked to Ben Caffey about this, there may be some instance, and we're not going to suggest or just automatically preclude from McGill from being a potential engineering firm just because of a conflict of interest or appearance of a conflict of interest. There may be some instances when they go out and kind of do that field visit, where if they put a project together, we might recommend in some instances that they have a civil engineer in some form or fashion review and help them and kind of putting the bid requirements together for it. So I think that gets a little bit to kind of design requirements. We don't have a specific set of design requirements, but just to kind of meet a standard to ensure quality on these projects. I mean, it won't be foolproof, but we could add some language in there about, as determined by field visit, may recommend an engineering firm.
Depends on the size of the project.
Yeah, and what appears to be the
Yeah.
complexity of it, so,
If it gets into really technical, yeah, I can see that, but if
Yeah.
it's stuff, just put a culvert in or a larger culvert, do that.
so I think that was a valid point. So I could circle back and see what they recommend without making it too onerous for the public. And then the next thing on the next page there, they had any work that's performed without an agreement in place will not be covered by the grant. It's just adding some clarifying language there that, we're not going to cover things that aren't, covered by the grant program. And they had another comment about improvements should be reviewed, and I think that was a good comment for conformance with town zoning, ordinances, land use requirements before the application is approved. I don't think we're going to run into a lot where it may be pushed back because of our land use regulations, but we at least should have some review so we don't do anything in conflict with our land use regs. The next was about how our necessary connections to public stormwater system or work within the right-of-way addressed. Recommend being more stringent on this area, require an encroachment. I actually need some more clarification from them because I'm not sure why we would need an encroachment unless the improvement is going into the public right-of-way, because my understanding is really set up to do stormwater improvements that are out of our right-of-way, per the title of it. So I don't know if there may be some instances where it connects or it gets close, so maybe some clarifying language about that, but I actually have a call into Ben to try and get some more clarification on what he meant with that. And there was other staff from McGill that looked at this too and helped to provide comments. The next on the bottom there, and we don't have to use this, but I started to look at Raleigh's. They have like a scoring system, and that might be something helpful as we evaluate projects if we do a scoring system in there. Raleigh has one.
Now, we don't have to put that in this piece right there.
No, we don't.
The
But
group
just,
can pull it out.
yeah, as we do that internally, that might help.
Am I correct for a fair process when we're
Yeah.
reviewing things?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have that
and
scoring
it
system.
does, because even scoring systems aren't foolproof to kind of justify why this got funded and something, or recommended and funded and something else did not, but at least gives you more criteria that
Yeah.
you're thinking about critically or evaluating. So further in, if you get to the agreement section, and it was just some clarifying language about public stormwater runoff. They had a comment in there towards the top of the page, and then there's that box comment at the bottom about agreement should include indemnification of town during and as a result of construction also. So we do have indemnification language in there, and if I don't know if they're suggesting more in there to clarify that. So if you get to the second page, it kind of gets into this a little bit more. If you jump down to their comment, it's in paragraph 6. It says this would cover some of the previous note. We just recommend that the indemnification language be very clear and firm. So we may want to add something further in there about that the result of the improvements, that the town be indemnified if they mess something up in there, yeah.
That's where the attorney should have, I guess they would have caught that too.
Yeah.
He said it looked good. The attorney, you said attorney looked at it.
He was comfortable with
Okay.
it, but McGill thought there should be some
Just a little bit
some
more.
more indemnification language in there, so I'll go back and forth to those two sections and see if we can suggest some language and then have Joe look at that, or if he has additional thoughts on it. And then, that was it for McGill's comments, so, I thought they provided a pretty good substantive review of the draft program, so I can work on making some additional edits on that. And I think hopefully between now and Monday, then we can get this back to you and, possibly Monday approve it. If everything's good and you all are good with it.
Yeah.
And then I need to just work on how we're going to advertise this. I'm thinking, obviously our webpage, but not everyone sees a webpage, so Facebook, Connect, so we can do the Blackboard calling. We'll think of some other ways to kind of get the word out there. And then maybe, just a concise little statement of, hey, we're doing this, these would be the steps, without having to go in and read all of this, which they will if they're truly applying.
I guess the first page is like the flyer.
Yeah,
Kind of breaks into summary, then once they come in, that's when they'll get the whole.
Yeah, and kind of, and that's probably a good description of kind of the summary, but just so someone can look at it real quick and get an idea what this is about and not get too lost into the whole guidelines and that, be like,
That's just what my thought.
Too many words.
Because, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
summary right there, and that's what the,
Yeah.
I can one-page glance at that, then if they have any questions, it says come here, then
Yeah.
I'll get the whole packet.
yeah.
And to your
So-
point, I mean, something like that could easily go in the newsletter
Yeah.
or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
right, newsletter too. So, and if y'all, if you approve it next week, so maybe like middle of this month, we can release that then,
That'd be
which
great.
would be 15th or somewhere in there. So that would be my goal, to get that going.
And it's $100,000 is the.
Oh,
most
yeah,
likely-
and that's the other thing, anything else I forgot here? I know that we had thrown out that figure, and thanks for mentioning it again. We'd need to, I guess, either next week or on the November, I mean, if y'all take action and say, we want to fund this with 100,000, we got that authority, and you can mention it would come from, I'm going to suggest, if you take action on the 100,000 next week too, that actually in our CIP, we have enough room right now. You appropriated a lot less money for projects than was totally appropriated within the CIP for the current fiscal year. So take it from CIP, and then we'd follow it up with a budget amendment, so to make sure that's properly appropriated. So, but yeah, probably
Yeah, next week, too.
100,000, and that's what I would
Next
I'll
week.
agree to that,
recommend.
yes.
Yeah.
So,
Do it next week.
I don't know if you heard Trevor, but we'll be able to do that budget amendment next week as well, or?
I can talk to Heather and have that ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns on that item?
Thank you for the hard work.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for all the work.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, we're excited to see how this is gonna work, and, there'll be lots of questions and issues and problems we'll come into, but, we'll refine this as we go, and I think it'll be exciting for the public to have that opportunity to pursue this, so, and, use it.
I think so
So
too.
that was all I had on it, unless there's any,
Well, yeah, thanks for y'all's work on it.
okay, thank you.
Moving on, discussion item number 6, the consideration of our legislative priorities list.
All
Mr.
right,
Manager.
in your packet, I've got the list of legislative priorities, and then also a list of projects that we can specifically request funding from the legislature, from both the state legislature and congressional or federal side. The only change from, and if you need me to go through all the legislative priorities, I can. It contains the same ones that we had from last year, with the exception, because I think they still apply, what we're trying to do, but we added one, and if you want, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but have you done this list yet? It might be
Oh.
beneficial to go through it for Amber.
Yeah. So we got the legislative parties list, the project list for some potential, specific funding of some of these things that relate to the priorities. And then I attached, the League of Municipalities does a list of legislative goals, and some of those things marry into this. So, yeah, I can run through them real quick and then talk about the one we added, or I'm suggesting we add. So, the first is about the development of the town center. So we've been, as we've been trying to move this forward, have mentioned specifically, if we, as we get closer to a deal, like similar to the one we had under contract before, any funding assistance to help with infrastructure to the site for development. So that's what the first one's about. And we always when we meet with our legislative delegation, give them an update on kind of where we're at with town center things, what's the latest. The second one is, it mentions support for funding mechanisms to be put in place when state or federal legislation is passed that requires municipalities to carry out provisions of the legislation. That's a long-winded way to say, don't pass bills creating things we have to do locally without funding it. So they call it no unfunded mandates. So the perfect example, and we've got the audit going on this week for it, the MS4 permitting, you'll hear us talk about Phase 2 communities or MPDES. So the MS4 permit is about stormwater quality and these things we have to do to help protect and improve stormwater quality. Some of it has to do with stormwater flow, but the federal government through the state to us makes us do all these actions supporting our MS4 permit for stormwater quality, and they don't provide any funding for it. So it's basically saying, please don't pass bills that dump stuff on local government to take care of and don't provide any funding for it.
Right.
So that's one. Number 3 was about expanding grant funding for recreational facilities. So it could be indoor or outdoor. The classic example, outdoor that we're trying to do as a priority is greenway development and greenway expansion, but specifically the Cane Creek Greenway to the Meritor side. Item 4 is about grant funding support smaller law enforcement agencies. So small and large law enforcement agencies really benefit from grant programs, particularly equipment, because it's hard to fund within the operating budget all the kind of capital requests that police departments may request or feel they need to support law enforcement or expand law enforcement efforts, and it's pretty costly. And there are grants out there. There's been like Classic Cops one that helps hire new officers. It's not capital related. We go after some state ones from year to year. The Governor's Highway Safety Program and Governor's Crime Commission are 2 that our police department, and those are state level, but they help with equipment, basically. So just additional assistance for grants for law enforcement. 5 is about Western North Carolina getting our fair share of community and economic development funds. The formula right now is skewed a little bit more towards communities that are less affluent. They do this tiering. Tier 1 is the most economically distressed. Tier 2 is less so. Tier 3 is the most, or least distressed, most affluent. We're a Tier 3, but it kind of hurts Tier 3 communities that to get resources to help improve economic development because you're penalized because you're a Tier 3 community. There's definitely some justification for the Tier 1, Tier 2 getting more because they're trying to improve it's much more challenging or dire. So that's just trying to balance that. Item 6 is about legislation, provide the town with enhanced local options for revenue sources. This is something, this is one that mirrors a goal of the League of Municipalities. So basically, as a local government in North Carolina, really the only power you, other than fees for various things, really the only taxing authority that you've got, true authority and flexibility, is the property tax. But you don't want to put too much of a burden on property taxes to fund local government services because it puts an undue burden on the property owner. So sales tax is kind of an example to give opportunities by a local option ability. So if they get a bill passed and you want to do a portion of additional sales tax for a specific service or services, do it by referendum, they call it a local option, And that way the residents decide if they want it. It's not just the council, doing that. So it gives a balanced approach to who has the authority to do it, but you can't do it unless the General Assembly allows you to do it. And then there's some other local options out there, like occupancy tax, impact fees, but you can't do any of these things unless the General Assembly approves it. And so sales tax is a classic, and you may not want to do it, even to start with, because you don't want to add to the sales tax burden here. But you may have a specific project that you can't feel you do it, you can't feel that you can do it unless you have that. But anyways, and it goes back to a local option being by referendum by the whole town. Item 7 is about expanding funding for expanding water and sewer to unserved areas. So those places that don't have water and sewer, this additional funding sources. So, excuse me, like for example, we're applying through Land to Sky for that revolving loan fund that came up as a result of Helene, and it's EPA money that's going through Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, with the state, and we're working on an application due in November, and just more sources to get water and sewer to unserved areas. So that's what that's about. And 8 is about making sure there's enough funding in place to support DOT with our roads and keeping them at a high standard. That's a really important one because most of the roads in town and in North Carolina are actually DOT roads. I mean, we have combination DOT, town maintained, and private, but there's some very large roads in town, they're all DOT maintained, and they've struggled with enough staff, proper funding for maintenance, and that has, a cascading effect on the appearance of town, economic development. So it's a real important one that we've kept in here. And then 9 is about funding federal and state resources for workforce housing. So this is about workforce housing, affordable housing with the housing crisis, so resources for that. And then the new one, item 10, is about federal and state resources for development of a Fletcher Library branch. We had this in there years ago and kind of added it back in as we're trying to re-engage discussions with the county to do a joint project for a new library branch in the town center area. So in fact, Mayor and I met with Connor Brown, a rep from Congressman Edwards' office this past week, and even though it wasn't on our list then, this is an updated list mentioning that. And so we need to update our costs, potential costs for a library branch, the size, et cetera, and really want to try and lobby for any state or federal assistance. There's not a lot of examples, but there have been some, particularly General Assembly. The former, I think, Senator Pro Tem funded a project in his jurisdiction for a library, so don't say it's never been done. Maybe where there's a will, there's a way. So anyways, that was one to be added, or I'm suggesting, and if you want to take that off, or
That's been on the 20-year wish list.
I don't know about 20 years, but it's been on there a long time. Yeah, at least
10, 12.
10, 15, yeah.
I think it's a good time to leave it, though. I think there could be some meaningful conversations to
Yeah.
maybe push
Yeah.
things forward, so
Yeah.
I think it's in a good place right now to be here.
Yep.
Okay. On the project list, which is on that next chart, the only thing I updated on here, we had one come off. We had those license plate readers, but you all funded that, and they're up now. And so
Yeah, is that what's in
places
front
town.
of the park?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one there.
Small black pole.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering. I
There's
thought
one
that was it.
on,
Flock camera.
like where Rockwell Road and 25, and then there's, I'm trying to remember where they're all at, Chief told me, think there's one on Mills Gap,
No gap.
and I can't remember where the fourth is right now. And I may be wrong on the Mills, there was two other locations.
And put one on Fanning Bridge, didn't
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
believe they
mean,
did, and I think it's at the north end of town. I gotta get clarification where the other two are at, because I don't.
So none on 25, because
Yeah, I think the one, there's one on, well, no, there's one on 25 down where Rockwell comes into 25, you know, like going, like where the,
As they're leaving town.
yes, I call it.
well, I didn't know if we were able to use Henderson and Buckley counties, because you know, they've got them out there somewhere too, don't they?
I think
We
we
have
Well, we can
access to
access,
it.
I
yeah.
know we do, that's what I'm saying, I didn't know if we got to just leave theirs and put ours in
I
multiple spots.
I think we have one other one at the north end,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to remember where the location, I'll get clarification where the other two are. I think there's one there and a one on Mills Gap Road in the curve.
There it is.
Yeah, in the curve on Mills Gap.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and I think the one, the north end of 25, like up towards the bank versus, I think it's up there. I'll find out from the chief, but they're up now. in
It's gonna be a valuable
strategic
tool.
locations.
Absolutely.
And they're
Yeah.
completely stationary though, they're, I mean, they don't, you don't move
They don't
around.
move.
They're
One directional.
Yeah, and two of them are providing other video, just, we had an option to have just reading the plates, taking the pictures on it, and then other with some ongoing video on there. And then there's a policy on it so that it's only being used for investigations, and then we audit that, so, you know, there's no just
Right.
looking at it for,
At the county, we-
defined for other reasons other than investigating, cases and trying to,
Locating silver alerts, locating missing children.
yeah.
Locating sex offenders that are wanted, and then, I mean, there's a whole gamut of things.
Yeah, so, yeah, we have to be strict on what they're being monitored for or being used. And I'll get clarification on this, there's this other active video I think we have.
And understand,
two of them.
for everybody's, it's input driven, so it doesn't read or identify anything that a law enforcement agency did not input in for an investigative purpose. It's
Yeah.
not just reading to read, it's reading because an agency put information in,
Yep,
looking for someone or looking for something.
yeah, it's not
But it
just,
is going into the thing, and then you can come back retro and look into it, so, because if you're looking for a child abduction, and you're looking for a red Ford truck, you type in red Ford truck, and they'll show you every red Ford truck in a period of time. in the
Yeah,
past.
and if you have a time, like I had a situation in Mills River, we had a white four-door car, and that was all we had leaving at 2 o'clock in the morning, so we went to the next camera. They took all those, any white four-door cars
Okay.
leaving that
Yeah.
area, get the tags, did interviews, and were able to solve the crimes with that information.
All right, Can we come back? I just want to get back to legislative priorities.
Yeah.
Before we get off, no, it's fine. I think that was helpful too, not to get away too much from the.
yeah, and I was gonna get back into, but go ahead.
No, go ahead,
Oh,
Mark.
So the King Creek Greenway extension, I kept on the project list, kept that the same on the funding ranges, and we could adjust that if we need to. Same with I adjusted a little bit on the Fanning Bridge Road sewer extension, like if we don't get the grant, I upped that a little bit to 900,000. It's gonna be 900,000, a million probably by time if we're able to do the, you know, Westfeld Road, Dogwood Terrace, North Hudson Lane project. And then the library branch, I had TBD, to be determined on the dollar amount. There was a facility study that was done, and then we narrowed it down to how much square footage for the facility and the function. But we never really got to a true, like, preliminary design. But I was gonna dig that out, look at it, maybe even talk to the company that did it and see what they might suggest for an updated square footage cost, and they'll give us a decent.
That's a good thing to do.
So I can do that. So, and that was kind of it for the projects.
I just had maybe two things that we might think about. I know in the past, well, in this past legislative session, there was a lot of talk around removing some, I think, the local zoning control that we have. Do we want any language in our legislative priorities list about, and maybe it's already in here, maybe it could be fitting here, but around just maintaining that local control for zoning authority? Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was gonna mention, should we put anything surrounding Hurricane Helene relief, like, I know we're still waiting on some FEMA reimbursements, and then also maybe for our residents' benefits, any kind of advocacy around there. I'm not sure where they're at with the individual assistance with FEMA, I'm not sure what that looks like, but, you know, if any of our residents end up doing the buyout, I mean, it might be good for us to have some kind of advocacy piece in there about Hurricane Helene. I don't know if there's any thoughts about that.
I like it too.
Okay. I'll come back with some language on that, then we can discuss, I'll send it out in advance, Ken, and then you can discuss it next week. too,
Okay.
if that kind of hits the points. Okay? Good.
Do we have anything else on this item?
Do these, can they stay on there forever? Like, or do they have a time limit, all the projects? Is there a projection of
We've
time
pulled
to
a
stay?
few off. We don't have a time limit
So
on
they can just
there.
sit until?
Until they're
full,
done,
till
or they're not
okay.
relevant. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And there's been ones that have sat for a long time.
Yes,
and
yes,
not got done.
sir. Yeah, number one.
Yeah, but we keep on working.
Yeah.
Alrighty, hearing nothing more on that item, moving on to your town manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So just a few things. The park, so all our repairs from our damage from Helene, the first phase, which was the ball fields work, and we had electrical repairs in the park, and I'm just gonna lump this up all under that, and electronic sign, that is all done, and the punch list items are done now, so they've corrected the things that needed to be corrected. You'll notice the new electronic board is out there, signs, that's
That looks
functioning.
good. Looks good. Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, I think it does. And so that is done, I'm glad to say, finally. And the other major phase of the repairs, which was the bridge, and then the stream bank repairs, is done. And
It does look
yeah,
very good.
we got our certificate of completion, which basically like a one-year warranty on the work, and I just signed that today. But the bridge, I think, yeah, you all agree, I think they did, the contractor did some really good work. In fact, they're a contractor we'd like to kind of remember for future reference, maybe for smaller or bigger projects, they have an opportunity to bid, just because they were efficient, they wanted to, they definitely demonstrated a willingness to do high-quality work and communicated well with us. So they're on a Brevard. So that was encouraging, and just nice to have the bridge open now, and
Yeah.
patrons being able to use it. Public Works and Parks and Rec Maintenance did some improvements to the trails, just, adding gravel and trimming back. So I hope you all find it looks to be in very good shape. I walked a certain section, and of course, we've been checking it out, and then I think it looks good, but we're really happy to have all that done. So yeah, there may be some other small things that come up, but for the most part, we're kind of complete with our Helene-related damages to the park. So that's exciting to share with you. And
well done.
thanks. Yeah, I think the contractors did a really good job. We have a little more things to get corrected and deal with the first part and with the contractor, but it's done. I think they've done it. It's nice to see our park patrons out there using the facilities again and enjoying it, so that's nice. The only other thing Helene related I was gonna mention right now is debris removal. You know, we, for all intents and purposes, are mostly done in town. I will say, and I think I've talked a little bit about this recently, but the Public Works has identified some piles, about 10 piles in town where they've got the stumps, root balls, and we don't have the equipment to remove them. They've all been submitted to the county and to the contractor. Things just don't seem to be moving with that, and, you know, we can push it, and we keep following up and communicating, but we're kind of getting to the point where we may just take care of it ourselves, and Jabo Public Works come up with a plan. We'd rent some equipment so we can cut it up to some more manageable pieces and then haul it off. So we'd have the expense of the equipment rental and then dumping fee. So, I mean, it's not a huge expense, but it's something we may just want to take on in the scheme of everything that's been eligible expenses. This would be a small one for us to cover without trying to go after FEMA reimbursement. On the FEMA reimbursement side, we've got over I think 600,000 that's obligated. We've had about 130,000 actually reimbursed back. Of the total million in expenses roughly, we were, I think we're about 630-ish that's obligated, and we just recently found out that about 500 and some thousand was obligated. So hopefully with that, that'll get paid out in the not too distant future here. Everything is in the system that we've requested for reimbursement. It just takes time to get that with FEMA obligated. It's a much more complex process now. When you have a storm eligible public assistance, which is, you know, government facilities, document it, go through that with the FEMA staff, get it in their system, and then getting it to the point where it's obligated. So that's kind of, we're in that phase, if you will, and we just got notice of like 500 and some thousand of it being technically obligated. So it's moving, it's slower than obviously we all hoped. We're in a lot better shape than a lot of other local governments that have had very little or no or half reimbursement. But, you know, relative to the amount of damages, particularly debris removal, which we didn't take on, we're in not too bad a shape as far as total expenses for reimbursement. So, and we thankfully have very good cash flow and reserves to handle this until we get reimbursement. That's not hurting us as far as operating day to day. So that's what's going on with debris removal. Next thing, I know we've let you know well in advance, but again, on the fall Community Appreciation Day, which is a shred and medication turn in and contributions to ABCCM, that's Friday, October the 24th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at First Citizens Bank. So there'll be shredding services to shred documents, medication turn in with our police, and then donations to ABCCM. And the town will help in putting on some of this event and be out there. So they're providing food, hot dogs, chips. So that's coming up. And then last thing, fun recreation event. We got our Halloween crawl coming up on Saturday, October the 25th from noon to 2 at Billmore Community Park. And they'll have trick-or-treating, inflatables, and a DJ out there. So looking forward to that.
Sounds good. Any other questions,
That's all I have.
comments from Mark? So where are we at with SRF funding? Where are we at in that process? I know I'm working with Mary Roderick. right?
Yeah, state revolving funds, the SRF. We did a survey. Christine helped me a little bit while I was gone to check on outstanding responses. We've got about roughly half of actual full responses, and then some of that didn't respond out of the 34 households or properties. There's definitely enough interest. The biggest concern is what level of expense will be included. Right now, we're hearing it's pretty much turnkey. They would provide all of the expense to provide the wastewater sewer connection to the house or to the property. So if that is the case, it's a pretty good deal for residents to take advantage of it. And I imagine we'd have a high rate of those who want to sign on to it. It's just, we're working a little bit more on justification, like how bad is it?
Yeah,
And
yeah, I talked to Mary about it a little bit.
yeah, and the survey helps with some of that. I was hoping we had a little more data from that to demonstrate, need, demand for it. I'm gonna follow up with the health department a little bit too, to see any more information they can provide about like failing septic systems,
Yeah.
or if you had to do it over again, these soils would be really difficult to permit for a septic.
Septic.
And we know there's fairly significant issues with septic systems out there. So, that's kind of where we're
Jeff?
at. And it's in November, it's looking like, for the deadline.
Okay, so right around the corner, yeah.
So, and I gotta work, we're trying to get like a updated sealed estimate on costs.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, just in my conversations with Mary Roderick, it sounds like we probably need to do all we can to bolster this application.
yeah,
So,
yep.
good. All right, any other business for council? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Okay, Trevor made a motion.
I'll second Trevor's motion.
All right, sounds good. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.
My septic got pulled up by those trees.
Did it?
The root balls
Really?
flipped up,
Sheesh.
and you got styrofoam balls all over the place.
Pardon me?
Styrofoam balls.